So my calendar this week did something, let me know something that I wasn't aware of, I guess. I felt the need to do this. My calendar, little alert popped up that told me that it was the first day of winter. Anyone else had that happen? Yeah, it was like this last week it happened, and I'm like, oh really, thank you, calendar, for letting me know this, because I might have missed it had you not done this. In fact, in that moment I thought, I don't think that winter got the memo that it was early, right? Like, it kind of came a little soon, but I was kind of sitting there when that happened. I started thinking about seasons, and I was thinking about how interesting seasons are, that we really don't define them. We don't define when they start. We don't even really get to define how they happen or what they look like when they happen. All we really do is talk about what is. When we talk about seasons, we just talk about ideas. We talk about a feeling. We talk about the nature of the way things happen to be at a particular moment in time. But we really don't define that. All we're doing is kind of describing what already is. That's the way seasons are in every category, seasons of life and seasons of the world that we live in. But there are seasons in the life of the church, and this is kind of an interesting thing to think about. Historically and through history, the church has experienced seasons, and on an annual basis, the church globally follows through particular seasons and identifies what it is we're experiencing during those times. The traditional name for this season that we're in right now is the word Advent. This is the season of Advent. It's something that takes place, and we've given it a name, and the name is Advent. Here's what's interesting about calling this season that we're in Advent. Advent is actually a word that simply means the arrival. It means the coming. And when you think about that word being used to describe an entire season, you kind of begin to understand the irony of it, because for most of us, an arrival isn't something that takes very long, right? How many of you have traveled someplace and you showed up there for this holiday season, or you have friends that are showing up or family showing up to your house this season? Raise your hand up if that's you. How long did it take you to arrive? About 10 seconds, right? Like, you pulled in the driveway and it was like, we're here. And if you were going to describe that season, you'd go, well, there was this moment before we pulled in the driveway, and then there was this moment when we got out of the car, and then we got to the door, and that was pretty much it, right? That was the arrival. So there's kind of this irony that we call an entire season, one that churches around the world acknowledge covers the entire month of December and then some, as this word Advent that literally means the coming, means the arrival. It means something that is very short term, which could cause us to say, well, then what is this all about? What are we really describing? The reason we use this word to describe this season is because this word not only defines a singular moment and the one that we're remembering and celebrating tonight, but this word also identifies this sense of arrival, also carries with it this understanding not just of the moment, but of the moments that existed before the moments. This Advent, this arrival, this particular season that we remember is not just remembering an event, but it's remembering what was going on before the event. It's remembering what took place in the moments before the moment. That whole idea has to do with another word, and that word is anticipation. Anticipation is that feeling that we get when we know that there's something awaiting us, and usually it's good, right? Somebody yesterday told me about anticipation. They said they knew a child who on Christmas morning was told they couldn't go downstairs, but he stood at the top of the stairs so long and got so excited he eventually wet himself waiting for Christmas morning out of excitement. That seems to capture the essence of anticipation, right? Like, you're so excited, you can't wait. It's a child whose parents have no longer woken up early in the morning to sit by the glow of the Christmas tree and are basking in an opportunity to sleep in, and the kid is just waiting for mom and dad to wake up. That is anticipation. Anticipation is knowing something's about to happen, and that thing is good. And the season between the moment of realizing it and the moment of it happening is defined by waiting. It's defined by these emotions, by these feelings, these things that come up inside of us. This season that we're in, this season of Advent, is a season that not only speaks to the moment, but it speaks to the waiting that exists. And we don't simply celebrate a 2,000-year-old event tonight. We also remember the anticipation. And not just the anticipation of people back then, But this is an anticipation that exists in the hearts of every single human being. The arrival of Jesus is an arrival, it's a coming that is a response, it's an answer to a question that is deep inside of every human soul. It is something that all of us, whether we can give words or language to it, we all acknowledge this. There is a longing, there is an anticipation for something that will solve this, whatever this thing is. Traditionally, this season in churches has been marked by the lighting of candles. Candles that represent 4 very distinct themes that are a part of Advent. These themes, these ideas that Advent centers around are actually the very things that human beings long for at our deepest level. What's fascinating about these things is that as much as we love to give amazing gifts and celebrate by loving each other with presents, this is a season in which none of us will wake up to receive the gift of these things identified in Advent. Nobody got the themes of Advent at a Black Friday sale or a doorbuster event. And nobody on Christmas morning is going to open up a present and say, there it is, there's the thing my heart's been longing for all of my existence. Like, that won't happen this season. But the reason that we celebrate and the reason these candles are significant is that we actually can obtain these things. The deepest longings can be had because of what Jesus has done for us. The first of these candles, the first theme of Advent, is hope. And I hope I grow a few more inches. Did I get it? All right. Applause are okay. No, just kidding. When I was a kid, my parents were very generous, and they would always ask us for a Christmas list. And I don't like knowing what I'm going to get on Christmas morning, and so I would make sure that I put enough things on the list, not too many things, but enough things on the list that I could still be surprised. I never wanted to really know what was happening. I love the anticipation. I love that idea of what is going to be under the tree. I think my mom also liked messing with us growing up because my mom did all kinds of things to kind of trick us and tease us. One year, and then several different years after that, she decided to use a numbering system rather than put names on gifts. And so there were different numbers on different packages. And at first, I just assumed all the ones that had a 1 on it were mine because I was the favorite, right? And so then I discovered there was like some algorithm, there was some equation that my mom and my dad had held, and you put the numbers together and you kind of figured out what the presents were. My mom also had this habit of wrapping up inside of our presents normal household things that sounded ridiculous when you shook them inside of a box. She'd put weights in a box. She would put rocks in a box. She would put things that weighed nothing in a giant box just to mess with us. And so when Christmas morning rolled around, there was always this moment of surprise. And for me as a young kid, I remember opening things up and really having no idea, like, what could this be? What is this? And I remember so many times, year after year, opening things and uttering these words or thinking these words, I would say, this is what I've always wanted. How many of you remember saying that or thinking that, right? I wish somebody would have asked me in that moment, like, to a 7 or 8-year-old, how long is always? And I probably would have said, I don't know, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. That's probably what it was, right? But captured in that is this echo of another type of hope that's going on. Inside of that, there's a picture of what hope is all about. Hope is this idea that there is something coming and that something is good. Hope is this idea that there is something around the corner, and whatever it is, it's going to be better than today. Hope is an idea that says, it's a feeling, it's an understanding that no matter how repressed or how absent it might be in the moment from our lives, it's this deeper sense that this life that we're living and this place that we're living is going somewhere, and that someplace is good. That is what hope is all about. Hope is when you wake up and you go, I don't really care what's happening today because I know that tomorrow is going to be a better day. Now, in our culture, we try to find hope. We try to find hope in people. and we try to find hope in possessions. We try to find hope in place, and by identifying something that if we just had it, if we had that relationship, that person, that possession, then maybe tomorrow would be a better day. And so we think that's what's going to make life better. But the truth is that nothing resolves our desire for hope like Jesus. And in this story of his coming, we have a picture of a God who enters into the messiness. He enters into the humanity. He enters into all that's taking place in human existence to be with us and to be present with us. And so in that early scene where the Magi have visited, and by the way, not on the same night as the shepherds, but when they visited, and when the shepherds visited, and when others came around this, all of them were overwhelmed with the same sense. All of them looked and said, this is like nothing we've ever experienced before. And because of this, tomorrow will be different. They could stare at a child. They could look at the life of Jesus, this God who had come to be with them, Emmanuel, God in the flesh. And because of this child, now there was a hope that didn't depend on your possession or your place or the people around you. Now there was a hope because this is a God who has come to be with us. And this is a God, if he's with us, who is also for us. And this is a God who is here to teach us and to show us and to guide us and to comfort us. That is why we celebrate hope, because we want it. And yet it's only found in Jesus and in this moment. The next theme that we celebrate this time of year is peace. That didn't work. When I became a dad, my life changed dramatically. Can I get an amen? My checking account changed dramatically, right? But Christmas changed dramatically. I loved Christmas as a kid, and I had the privilege of loving that with my family every year. But when I became a dad and when my children began to grow, suddenly Christmas was reversed, and I began to find a peace that I never thought I would ever experience. And it happens in a time that is really rare and really unique. There's this moment in our house, and I'm looking forward to it tomorrow. There's this moment when we've already opened the stockings and we've eaten breakfast and we've opened all the gifts. That's the way you're supposed to do Christmas, by the way. There are rules to these things. But when we've done all these different things and we sit around and the packages have all been opened and my kids will be sitting around in their sweatpants and their hair's messy and they don't let me take pictures because now they're teenagers. But they're all a mess and they're all kind of hanging out and we're just kind of all done and the anticipation is over and all the excitement is coming to there's this moment for me when I look at the room, and in this moment that happens every year, I suddenly realize my kids aren't racing off to be with friends. They're not headed out to school. There's no one going to work in this moment. We are all perfectly content. All is well. All is good. This is calm. This is peace. There is this peace for me that I experience on Christmas morning when everything just seems to be the way it's supposed to be. Peace. That is what Jesus has come to give us, this sense of calm, this sense of everything is going to be okay, everything is going to be all right. Again, our culture, we long for this. Our society, we're constantly searching and seeking. We're trying to find moments of calm. We're trying to organize life in a way that'll deliver peacefulness. And yet in Jesus, we have somebody who gives us a peace unlike any other. That peace, the peace that we build for ourselves, is one that it's dependent on all the stars aligning, right? The kids don't have appointments and everybody's here and there's no bills that are waiting to be paid and there's no appointments to rush off to. That kind of peace only happens every once in a while. But the peace that Jesus offers us is a completely different kind of peace. He offers us a peace that is completely about our relationship with God. He offers us peace with our Creator. He offers us peace with other people. He offers us peace with ourselves. It's why the angels, when they announced, they said, peace on earth. There was this moment that when Jesus comes, there's this acknowledgement that from this point forward, human beings can experience a peace. And in Jesus' birth, there is this opportunity for you and I to be connected to our Creator in the way that we were intended to be connected. And there is this opportunity for us to live in relationship with others as He leads us in the way that we were intended to live with others. There is this ability for us to know ourselves in a way that is recognized to be the way God sees us. There's something that happens when Jesus comes that offers a peace like we've never known before. He says, my peace I give to you. We can say everything is okay. We don't need circumstances or situations to be perfect. There is a peace that He gives us outside of those things. And that's why we celebrate. The third one is joy. This Christmas, I get to be with more family than I've been with in a long time at the holidays. And I love it when my family gets together. Because if there's a characteristic of my family, it's that we laugh together. We laugh loud and we laugh long and we smile till it hurts. And there is joking and there is joy. There is this thing about my family that's just amazing. And for me, the moments in Christmas when we experience that joy, it's like this shadow of a more significant joy that we find in Jesus. This story is a story that is filled with rejoicing. It's a story that's filled with human beings experiencing a joy like no other. Now, we live in a culture, again, that is obsessed with the pursuit of happiness. And we've confused happiness with joy. Happiness is something that comes and goes with the moments, right? Happiness is something that, depending on the circumstances, depending on who's happy with you, depending on whether or not people liked your gift or didn't like your gift, or whether you liked your gift or didn't like happiness is something that comes and goes. Happiness is something that's very slippery, it's very elusive, it's very difficult to grasp. But joy, the joy that Jesus brings us, is something that is deeper and it's tangible and it's something that we can take hold of. Where do we find that joy? Genuine joy is found when we begin to understand the universe in which we live, the nature of that universe, when we begin to understand the God who rules in that universe, and we begin to understand ourselves as we live out our lives in that universe. There is something that happens when we begin to see the larger scope of what is happening around us, when we begin to see the larger picture of who God is, and we begin to see ourselves the way that He sees us. There is something that takes place that gives us joy, a joy that goes beyond whatever moment we happen to be in, because every day we wake up and say, this is the world in which we're living. Jesus, as He comes, redefines all of this for us. Jesus entering into humanity, entering into this world, sends a very clear message about the nature of this universe in which we live. He sends a very clear message about the nature of this God who rules this universe. And He sends a very clear message about those of us that live in it, which is very much connected to the final theme of Advent, which is love. We have hope, and we have peace, and we have joy, and we have love. One of my favorite things about Christmas is exchanging gifts. Not the kind of gift giving where you have a list of people and you're racing around and you're checking them off and going, we got to make sure we get something for so-and-so, right? Half of you are like, that's all I ever do, right? Not the kind of gift giving where you find out that somebody's got you something and you didn't get them something, and so now you're trying to think of what you can do to get them something so they don't feel bad. How many of you, don't raise your hand because you know that's you, right? You find out there's this little party, like, that's awesome, that's great that you did that. And you're like, crap, now what, right? And you're like, well, how much did they spend? And it turns out they got you hot cocoa. And you're like, oh, no, not that kind of gift giving. I love the gift giving that comes from the heart, the kind that's sacrificial, the kind that says, I know you, and I know you, and I've thought about you, and I dreamt about what it is that you would like, and I made some sort of sacrifice to give you something. I love that picture of giving. When my oldest daughter, who happens to be at my left and your right down there, was just in kindergarten or first grade, she saved up some money, and then there was this Santa's workshop thing downtown. I don't know if they still do that. They do, okay. I call it the Santa's ripoff, but that's a whole different thing. But she went down there, and so there was a shopper who could take her around, and I was kind of with her, but then there was this moment where she needed to buy something for me, right? And she was so excited about this, and so I had to kind of go off by myself while this person took her around and showed her some things and made some suggestions, and then at some point she made the purchase and hid it from me, and then we took the gift back to our house, and at some point she wrapped it up, and on Christmas morning, I got the little box that she had wrapped up, and I undid the ribbon, and I pulled the box out, and as I opened it up, inside was a giant safety pin with some Russian nesting dolls on it. Because every dad needs a giant pin with a set of Russian nesting dolls. And she didn't know I still had this until yesterday. I've just kept it ever since because for me, this isn't a set of nesting dolls on a pin. This is a symbol of my daughter's love for me. We understand love best when somebody gives sacrificially to us. And this story, this Advent, this coming, this arrival of Jesus is a sacrificial gift that the God of the universe has given to us to say, I love you, to know that we're loved. Jesus spent his life not just saying that once, but over and over and over again, reminding us of the relentless, unchanging love of God. Unfortunately, we live in a world today where maybe because of religious past, maybe because of something a Christian has said or people have done in Jesus' name, there are so many people who that message of God's unconditional love is buried beneath all kinds of baggage and hate and records of wrongs and things that drive them away. But somewhere beneath all of that, beneath all of the messages that have been preached and all the things that have been said and all the screaming and the rules and the religiosity, if you can get past all of that, at the core there is this story of a God who sends his son. It is this story of controversy. It is counterintuitive. It is provocative. It is not what anyone expected because this God comes into our circumstances messy and broken and disintegrated, and he comes and meets us, not as we've been cleaned up, but as we are, and says, I know you and I love you. That's powerful, isn't it? That's why we do this. Because somehow in that moment, we have the opportunity to receive hope and to experience peace, to have a joy that goes beyond whatever circumstances happen on any given day, and an opportunity to understand and know what it means to be deeply loved. This tradition that we're about to engage in, I think, is a beautiful symbol of what it is we receive. And if you want to take out your candle now, that would be great. There is something about light. And there's something about this flame and the way it's passed that speaks to the significance of what it is that Jesus has done. To a very dark and drab story, there is a light that enters in, and that light drives out meaninglessness and hopelessness. That light reminds us of purpose and life and what it could be. To receive this flame is to understand that there is a warm rush of wind that comes into a room that is chilled and cold with fear and anxiety and drives it out, replacing it with hope and peace. This is a reminder of the love that our God has for us. And tonight, as we sing and as we pass this flame, it's an opportunity for you to say, I recognize this, and I receive this, and I live in this, because I know who Jesus is. So the band's going to sing "O Holy Night," and then together, we're going to share this flame with one another. Let's sing together. May you this Christmas know that you are loved, and may you experience the joy that comes through Jesus. May you be filled with the peace that he offers you, and may your life be characterized by hope because of him. Amen. Amen. Merry Christmas, everybody.